Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back once again to our ongoing series on the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So first of all, you have to forgive me, I have a cold. And we have a seasonal change here in Vrindavan. We went from winter to springtime very quickly, so got a cold, but I'm determined to go on with this lecture. So we are continuing with our mini-series on Stimulation for Ecstatic Love, a title that Srila Prabhupada gave to chapter 26 of his Nectar of Devotion. This chapter focuses on the stimuli that helps to awaken our love for the divine couple, Radha and Krishna. In our last lectures, in this mini-series, we discussed the role of Vrindavan flowers. In this regard, namely the Kadamba flower and the rose flower. So today we'd like to continue with that same theme by discussing the glories of the lotus flower in Krishna's Leelas. Those familiar with Krishna's pastimes, or even those of his great devotees, will know how often lotus flowers are depicted in such Leelas. For example, Lord Brahma, the first created being in this universe, he's often depicted sitting on a 1,000-petaled lotus. And of course, Lakshmi Devi, the wife of Lord Vishnu, is often shown either standing or seated upon a lotus flower, as well as bearing a lotus in either one or both of her hands. In fact, Lakshmi Devi herself is known as Padma or Kamala, which are both Sanskrit terms for the lotus. And I was reading that the Rig Veda says that Agni Dev, the god of fire, he emerged from a lotus flower. And the Atharva Veda says that the scent of the earth resides in the lotus. I found that. The scent of the earth resides in the lotus. Yaste ganda pushkaram abhivesha. The literal meaning being, thy sweet scent which entered the pushkara. The pushkara. Now, in describing the birth of Chandra, the moon, Shastra also gives reference to the lotus flower. It's very beautiful. I found this as follows. When the east gave birth to the moon, love was the dancer at the feast. The heavens smiled with joy, and the wind scattered the perfumed dust of lotus pollen in the courtyard of the sky. Isn't that nice? Describing the birth of the moon. When the east gave birth to the moon, love was the dancer at the feast. The heavens smiled with joy, and the wind scattered the perfumed dust of lotus pollen in the courtyard of the sky. Now, our Shastras even use analogies of the lotus when giving spiritual lessons. A most excellent example is when Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 5:10, one who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action as the lotus is untouched by water. As the lotus is untouched by water. Now it's a fact, the lotus flower, the stem of the lotus flower goes deep within the water and is embedded in the mud. But if you look very carefully, although the lotus flower's in the water, or in the mud you could say, it's always a little bit above the water, maybe 2 inches. I've seen many times here in India. The lotus flower is a little bit above the water. So we can be in this world, but not of this world, in the same way by practicing Krishna consciousness. Perfect analogy, utilizing the lotus. Now, of course, for devotees, the very best use of the beauty of this amazing flower is when it's used in relation to our Lord Krishna himself. Queen Kunti famously says, as many of you know, in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:8-22, "My respectful obeisances are unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like a lotus flower, who are always decorated with garlands of lotus flowers, and whose glance is as cool as the lotus, and whose feet are engraved with lotuses." Hare Krishna. Now, in Sanskrit, the lotus has various names, like Padma, Rajiva, Kamala, Aravinda, Pankaja, Ambuja, Pundarika, Nala, Vairuha, Bisaja, Bishapushpa, Shaila Udbhava, etc., etc. There's so many names. And from Shastras like Vrindavan Mahimamrita, Braja Riti Chintamani, and Govinda Lilamrita, we hear how many, if not all, of the ponds, lakes, rivers, and other water sources in Braj are often decorated with lotus flowers. There's so many paintings like that, or nowadays photos you can see. And of course, the river Yamuna personified, Yamuna Devi, she's famously portrayed wearing garlands of lotuses and holding lotus stems with the flowers open or sometimes just as a bud. Famous paintings of Yamuna Devi like that, very beautiful. And I found a beautiful verse by the Vaishnav poet Kumban, who we've quoted before, about Yamuna Devi in particular. It's a verse from his poem called Nayan Bar Deko Banu Ta Naya. He writes in this particular verse, "My dear friend, look at the daughter of the sun god, who wears a dress made of soft leaves, lotus leaves, embedded with pearls and shells. She holds lotuses which spread happiness on her banks. Kumban Das says, 'O lotus-eyed one, please give me residence on your banks, birth after birth.'" That's a beautiful verse for becoming a resident of Vrindavan. We can take birth on the banks of the Yamuna River, Kalindi, who is herself an expansion of Vishaka in the spiritual world. Now I found another beautiful verse by Surdas from his poem entitled Yamuna Jagat Udarjani. Yamuna Jagat Udarjani. Therein he writes, "O Sakhi, I saw the merciful form of Yamuna Devi, who is most compassionate. The green plants growing in her waters are her hair. Her blossoming lotuses are producing a divine fragrance, which makes bumblebees go mad with intoxication." Surdas says, "I pray unto the lotus feet of Yamuna Devi, she who is very dear to the Lord, because of her cooling touch, pleasant waves, and fragrant lotuses." She's very dear to the Lord because of her cooling touch, pleasant waves, and fragrant lotuses. Now, in my research in Radha Krishna Gunadesha Dipika, Rupa Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, mentions therein many of the different talents of Lalita Devi, Lalita Sakhi. She has many different talents, including how expert she is at making outfits. She makes umbrellas, she makes jewelry, as well as using the stems and leaves of the lotus flowers to decorate the divine couple. It's one of her expertise. She can take lotus flowers, the stems of those flowers, the petals of those flowers, and decorate Radha and Krishna in very beautiful ways. Now regarding decorating the divine couple with lotuses, in the Govindaji temple here in Vrindavan, whenever there's a big festival for the Pratibhu deities, means, as we know, Radha and Krishna were taken at one point to Jaipur, so the devotees installed another set of Radha Govinda deities here in Vrindavan, the same temple, as called Pratibhu. Whenever there's a big festival, these Pratibhu deities of Radha Govinda here in Vrindavan, they hold lotuses made out of pure gold. It's just a tradition they have in the Govindaji temple. On a big festival day, you'll see them holding lotuses of gold. And in Raghunath Bhatta Goswami's temple, Krishna often holds a kamal chadi. A kamal chadi, it means a stick of lotuses. And that stick is made of gold, around which fresh lotuses are strung onto with a thread. Now, I asked the pujaris, there at that temple, where actually in Raghunath Bhatta Goswami's temple, the main deity is the Bhagavatam, which he worshipped. But there's also Radha Krishna deities. So I asked, why on prominent days, why is Krishna holding a stick a golden stick with lotuses attached to it? And they said very, nonchalantly, Krishna uses that stick as a cane whenever he goes to meet Sri Radha. I went, okay. Krishna has a cane when he goes to meet Sri Radha, that particular deity. Wow. Different deities have different pastimes. Now in the Radha Vallabha, Govindaji, and Radharaman temples, there still exists today a traditional way of making dresses from lotuses and their petals. On special days you can go to in those temples and you'll see the deities are dressed in lotus flowers. And these dresses are offered to the Lord actually during the rainy and summer seasons in order to make the Lord more comfortable with the soft and, it's described, cooling touch of the lotus flowers. Now, it's also interesting to note that according to Vrindavan Mahima Marita by Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati and Braj Bhakti Vilas by Narayan Bhatta Goswami, Vrindavan, if seen from above, like if you're above Vrindavan, Vrindavan will look like the shape of a lotus flower. The 8 petals of this lotus flower are the 8 villages of the Astasakis, and in the middle of the lotus flower are the villages of Nandagram and Varshana. So in your mind's eye, you can just imagine like a bird, or you're in a helicopter, you look down, Vrindavan's shaped like a lotus flower. And the petals are the villages of the Astasakis, and right in the middle is Nandagram and Varshana. So beautiful. Now there are many pastimes of the Lord in which lotuses play a very integral part. In fact, so many, it would actually require an entire book, just to name them all. But for today, we'll recount one very short, but very sweet pastime, found in a poem of Surdas. It's called Kamal Ki Chatri. Kamal Ki Chatri. Translated from Brajbhasa, it means the lotus umbrella pastime. The lotus umbrella pastime. Now, in our series, we're often quoting Surdas, and rightfully so, because he was a 15th century saint known for his devotional songs dedicated to Krishna. And Surdas is said to have written and composed, listen to this, over 100,000 songs. Many of them have been lost, but fortunately we have a large number. 100,000 songs. And he was born in Vrindavan in the year 1478, and much of his life history is found in a book called Ain-i-Ikbari. It's a Mughal book, written during the reign of Emperor Akbar, who was favorable to the Vaishnavas. Now I was reading that Surdas, he could play a number of musical instruments, and he became the chief singer in the Gopal temple at Govardhan, when Gopal was present there at his temple, hundreds and hundreds, 500 years ago. Surdas, he would sing in the temple there. He was the main singer at Govardhan. And the legendary musician Tansen, who we mentioned in a series a few months ago about Govindaji, Tansen, he was the main singer in the court of Akbar. So one time Tansen, who would often come to Vrindavan, he sang one of Surdas's songs to Akbar. And Akbar was overwhelmed by the melody, by the music, by the poetry, by the mood of that song. So he said, that's such a beautiful song. So Tansen, he's a devotee, he's very humble. He said to the emperor, that tune and the lyrics are those of Surdas. And then he glorified Surdas. He said, kin down surko sar lagyo, kin down surki pir, kin down surko pada lagyo, ben down sakal sharir. That's Bajbas. Very beautiful, listen. This is his glorification of Surdas. Some are hurt by a warrior's arrow. Some are tortured by pain. But those whose hearts are touched by Sur's lyrics are pierced through again and yet again. Wow. Some are hurt by a warrior's arrow. Some are tortured by pain. But those whose hearts are touched by Sur's lyrics, means Surdas's lyrics, are pierced through again and yet again. With what? With devotion, with bhakti. So hearing this glorification of Surdas and appreciating the music and etc., Akbar actually sent an invitation to Surdas to join his court permanently as a chanter, as a singer. But as you can imagine, Surdas famously declined, saying he would only sing for his master Krishna and no one else. Jai Surdas. This is bhakti. He would only sing for his master Krishna, nobody else. Out there at Govardhan Hill. Why would he leave Govardhan to go to the court of a king in Delhi? So in his Kamal Ki Chatri, Surdas begins by writing that Krishna's pastimes are beyond meditation and understanding. A profound statement. Krishna's pastimes are beyond meditation and understanding. Then he poses the question, and how is that so? And he answers the question by saying, because the one who lifted Govardhan Hill said to his mother, "O Maya, I cannot hold your pots of butter to help you because my wrists are hurting." He lifted Govardhan Hill, but he says to his mother, "I can't help you with the pots." Who is this Krishna? Huh? What's going on here? Huh? Krishna's pastimes are beyond meditation and understanding. So then Surdas goes on, he says, because he who dances on top of the Kaliya serpent fears looking at the paintings of serpents on the door of Nanda Maharaja's palace. Because the one who killed the whirlwind demon Trinivarta said to his friends, "My dear friends, I'm afraid of swings. Please do not swing me so fast." Because the one who uprooted the very old and strong Yamal and Arjun trees in just one stroke said to his brother Balaram, "O elder brother, please break the little leaves that are covering these yogurt pots so I can feed my friends some sweet yogurt. Help me, I do not have enough strength to break these leaves." How do we understand the Supreme Lord? Surdas repeats, "O Lord, your divine pastimes are beyond meditation and understanding. You are so amazing." So then, Surdas begins narrating a pastime. That on one of the days that Sri Radha went to worship the sun god at Suryakund, which is actually a very beautiful lake filled with unlimited varieties of beautiful lotus flowers, Sri Radha asked Lalita Saki, "O Lalita, you are famous as the knower of all lotuses. Please describe to me the different types of lotuses that we see here in this beautiful Suryakund." So Lalita took the opportunity to describe the lotuses, but in such a way as to glorify her dearmost friend, Sri Radha. She said, "Yes, Sri Radhe, listen with love, for there are many different types of lotuses present here today. First, there is the white lotus, which is a reflection of your compassion and mercy, on which the bumblebee Krishna, always eager for your mercy, roams around. Then there are the pink lotuses, which are a reflection of your sweetness, opulence, and greatness, on which Krishna, who always hankers for your service, rests upon like a bumblebee. The blue lotuses here are the reflection of your beauty, which takes away all the fatigue of the bumblebee Krishna. The yellow lotuses present are the reflection of your love, which make Krishna, the bumblebee, intoxicated with love and affection for you. O dearest Radhe, all these special lotuses are representatives of your form and are supported by your leaf-like gopis and the lotus stems of different moods. That's deep. All these special lotuses are representatives of your form and are supported by your leaf-like gopis and the lotus stems of different moods or feelings or emotions, bhakti. Now, just at that moment, Vishakha, by the arrangement of Purnamasi, arrived on the scene and said, "Dearest Radha, today Yamuna, Devi, and other gopis have made arrangements for a boat festival tonight with Krishna on an island of lotuses in the Yamuna River." When I read that, I was amazed. There's the Yamuna River, but in the Yamuna River is an island, and on that island there's just lotus flowers everywhere growing. So excited at the prospect, all the Sakis dressed Sri Radha like what? Like a fragrant, blooming lotus flower. And under the cover of darkness, they all proceeded to the banks of the nearby Yamuna River, where Krishna was waiting for them on the banks. Actually, the other day, I read another poet's description of those banks of the Yamuna, because everything in Vrindavan is extraordinary. Nothing is ordinary. Everything is extraordinary. So I came across a description of the banks of the Yamuna. And that poet, he describes them as a stage upon which Krishna and the gopis often perform their renowned rasa dance. He writes that some banks are open and expansive, while others are secluded and concealed by gardens and groves. He describes that the sand on the Yamuna shore is naturally cooling, like powdered camphor. So when I hear these things, I try to imagine camphor, which we often use in puja. If you powder it, yes, it has a cooling effect. So he describes that the sand on the Yamuna shore is naturally cooling, like powdered camphor. And he goes on, kissed by moonbeams and the touch of Krishna's soft lotus feet, that fine sparkling powder is made doubly soothing, because it's kissed by moonbeams and the touch of Krishna's lotus feet. That powder, the sand, it becomes doubly soothing. This is the way in which we have to engage our minds. So he goes on to describe that the dark water of the Yamuna River is pleasing to the touch, and its current gently massages one's body, and it varies in depth. Here's a detail. How deep is the Yamuna River? It varies in depth, reaching in some places to the knees, and in other places to the navel, to your chest, or up to your neck. And he describes colorful lotuses like the red Kalara, or the white Pundarika, and the blue Indivara, and the golden Nalini dance upon the waves of the river. There's lotus flowers there, and the river is flowing. It appears that all these flowers are dancing. And not only that, but they're scenting the water with their pollen and attracting playful honeybees. Honeybees are coming around this, wow, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki. Now, back to Surdas, that pastime he's describing. Surdas goes on to explain that as soon as Yamuna Devi personified saw Sri Radha and Krishna there, and the gopis on the banks of the Yamuna, at the dock, actually ready to take a boat to the island of lotuses, she came walking on top of her waves. Yamuna Devi seeing all these Krishna and Radha and the Gopi, so she came to receive Sri Radha, walking on the top of her waves. And she offered a variety of lotuses to Sri Radha to welcome her. Just see how often the lotus is depicted in these pastimes. Then Radha and Krishna, according to Surdas, accompanied by all the gopis, they boarded the boat, and he describes they sailed towards the island of lotuses. Wow. They sailed. The beautiful billowing sail. Where are they going? To an island of lotuses. And upon arriving, Yamuna Devi herself, she was there to welcome everybody. And then she took them to rest and relax. Where? Under a huge umbrella made of lotuses and their stems. Now in your mind's eye, try to see that. On the island of lotuses, there's an umbrella, and it's made of beautiful, different colored and different scented lotuses and their stems, and they were resting there. So then they enjoyed delicious foodstuffs that were served to them by younger gopis called manjaris. And at that point, Radha and Krishna, they began enacting the main pastime for the night, which was what? A drama entitled The Lotus and the Bumblebee. Someday some devotee can make a film, and it can be entitled The Lotus and the Bumblebee. And in this drama, which played out during the entire night, Radha, it's a very simple drama, but the beauty is not only the simplicity, but the extreme deep devotion that overwhelmed everyone. Radha would throw a lotus flower, because the island's full of lotuses, into the Yamuna, and it's described Bumblebee Krishna, because bumblebees like lotus flowers. Bumblebee Krishna would swim out, grab that lotus flower, and then come back and offer the same lotus flower to the lotus feet, the red lac lotus feet of his beloved Sri Radha. So Surdas says that towards the end of the night, there was this enormous pile of all the colors in the rainbow and more. Beautiful lotus flowers, each of them with a different scented perfume, because they're all unique in their own way, decorating the beautiful feet of Vrindavan's queen, Srimati Radharani. And that alone gave the greatest pleasure to all of her gopi girlfriends, to see her glorified in that way, and to see Krishna controlled by her prem bhakti, her love for him and his love for her. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki. So then, at the first rays of dawn, as the first rays of dawn started to appear, everyone got back into the boat and sailed to the shore of the Yamuna River. And arriving, everyone quickly departed for their respective homes. Hare Krishna. That is the pastime. So beautiful. Thank you, Surdas. So we have many more lotus flower pastimes to share with you, and we'll continue next week. Somehow I made it to this point with my cold. I'm very happy I did so. But for now, we can finish this lecture with some words from our beloved Srila Prabhupada. Perfect way to finish. We will quote chapter 5 of Teachings of Queen Kunti, which is a compilation of Srila Prabhupada's lectures. Therein we hear Srila Prabhupada said, so here in these prayers, Queen Kunti Devi, a great devotee, is giving us an opportunity to become Krishna conscious simply by concentrating our mind on Pankaja, the lotus flower. Panka means mud, and Ja means generate. Although the lotus flower is generated from mud, it is a most important flower, and Krishna likes it very much. Queen Kunti Devi therefore describes all the parts of Krishna's body with reference to lotus flowers, so that as soon as one sees a lotus flower, one will immediately think of Krishna. Oh, Krishna's navel is just like a lotus, and from Krishna's navel grew the stem of the lotus upon which Brahma, the creator of this universe, was born. The universe includes so many planets, seas, mountains, and cities with motor cars and other paraphernalia, but the entire universe began from that lotus. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. So finish there, and we'll be back in a week. I hope during the week you can remember some of the glories of the lotus flowers and how they play an integral part of Radha and Krishna's leelas or pastimes. And that will help stimulate our love for the divine couple. Shishi Gauranitai ki, Shishi Krishna Balaram ki, Shishi Radha Samasundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, Mayapur Dhamma ki, Shishi Gauranitai ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Jai Jai Sisi Radhe, Shan. All glories to Shri